Welcome to the Encouragement for Real Life podcast. I'm Julie Lefebvre, your host. Life is remarkable, sometimes raw and always real. And some days we could use a little extra encouragement for our real lives. Here you'll find that, along with personal life-impacting stories, helpful life hacks, timely inspiration, biblical insight, and a fresh perspective. The Encouragement for Real Life podcast equips you to be a light in this world and to shine bright wherever God has you. I'm glad you're here today. Welcome back to the Encouragement for Real Life podcast. I'm Julie Lefebvre, and I am just so glad that you're here today. It is a special day here on the podcast. It's our guest episode for the month, which happens the last Tuesday of every month. And joining me in this episode is someone who I have had the privilege of working with in ministry for the last 10 years. Actually, he's been my boss for the last 10 years. This is Reverend John Louk. And we have walked through goodness. I was thinking about this the other day. In 10 years, we have walked through not only ministry and leadership, but hard seasons and lots of laughter and change and a whole lot of just everyday life together. And it's truly been a blessing to be under his influence. And interestingly enough, this month wraps up a decade of serving on church staff together across 2 different churches. Yeah, we talk about that in this episode. And I know all month long on the podcast, we've been looking at simple shifts for everyday life and how just making a simple shift can make a huge difference. The small things that shape the way we live and how we love and lead and walk with God. And in today's conversation, John and I really talk about what it looks like to just get back to the basics in life, in faith, and even in the way that we approach church and in our relationships. We talk about what actually matters in life and how challenging seasons can really reshape our perspectives, and why sometimes the healthiest thing we can do is return to the simple things that keep us grounded in God and also connected to other people. And so also, I think it's a very important conversation. We talked about church hurt and disappointment and what it looks like to stay close to Jesus in these kinds of life situations. But I think this episode is really going to encourage you. It's going to help you take a deep breath, especially if you've been feeling weary and overwhelmed, discouraged, or maybe even struggling in your faith a little lately. John Louk is a real person. Yes, we sometimes put pastors on a pedestal, but he puts his pants on just the same way you and I do, one leg at a time. He is very real, very authentic, and I think you're going to be very encouraged, like I said, in this episode. So wherever you're listening from today, I'm really glad you're here, so let's get into it. Well, welcome to the podcast, John. I am so glad you're here today.
Thanks. It's good to be with you, Julie.
Yeah, this will be fun. Well, not many people probably know who you are. And so I would love for you just to share who you are, anything you want to share about yourself, and just a season that you're currently in.
Absolutely. So I'm John Louk, and right now I am the pastor of the Waukee United Methodist Church, and I'm married to my wife, Joy. We have 3 kids, all grown up now, Caitlin and Annie and Mara, and I even have grandkids. We have 3 grandkids now, Junie and Flora and Sybil, and I've had the joy of working with you, Julie, for 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah, that's been fun. We've had a lot of life together.
A lot. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's think about that. So yeah, 10 years ago,
that you did. You think when someone asks you a question, where you're going to be in 5 years or 10 years, I mean, it's hard to answer that question. But looking back from all the life that you and I have just shared together by working together, what's different for you now than it was 10 years ago? Or what do you value more now than you did 10
Oh,
years ago?
let's see. 10 years ago was probably this sort of frenetic pace.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
We were in a church that had been actually destroyed in the flood of 2008 in Cedar Rapids. And we were rebuilding from that, and we were actually building a new facility. And I don't remember at what point you came on, but we were in the new facility when you
Uh-huh.
came on, right?
Uh-huh.
And so it was, I'll tell you this. When I was the pastor in that church, I was probably controlling more than I should have been as the pastor. And so I was just always like kind of like keep everything and like doing all of that.
Mhm.
And some of the leaders later kind of said, well, it kind of needed to happen for us to actually for me to take the horns and just like drive the thing forward. But that's not how you're supposed to lead. That's not what's supposed to happen, where someone's just like saying, "We're gonna do this and we're gonna go here," and that kind of a thing. So there was a fair amount of craziness going through all of that. Now, 10 years later, we actually built a church facility here at this church as well, but a much different kind of situation. It wasn't, coming out of disaster,
Yeah.
and all of that kind of grief and pain and making decisions about going forward and how we were doing it and all that sort of thing. This was planned, and people were waiting on it and wanting to do that. And here also had good leaders, and so I didn't try and step in and take the horns,
Yeah.
and drive
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
forward,
Yeah.
and just let the thing as God led that. So more relaxed 10 years now than 10 years ago for me.
Hmm. That's good. That's good. And, I all year long, I'm having guests on my podcast who've impacted my life. And John, you're definitely one of those people because,
Mm,
when I came onto the church, if you remember, I was very hurt by the church before that, where I
yeah.
had worked, I really dedicated a huge part of my life to a ministry, and I kind of got, stabbed in the back from certain people. And so I just walked away from church. My family and I did for a number of years. And I
Yeah.
just didn't think I'd ever come back into a church. But when Rhonda had said, "You need to come apply for this job," um, I she was a parishioner at the time and a friend of mine, and I did, and I still had my walls up for, for a little
Mm,
bit of time. But you really just walked the walk. You were a real person, not someone. I mean, and I could just trust you, and
yeah.
I could tell that. And so I appreciate how real you are, how fun you are, and you were truly just a wonderful boss. And I have to say was because
I
now
know.
that I just left that position at Waukee, but yeah. So I just thank you for just being who you are and allowing God to just, even though you had to take the reins back at the first church, it's just been fun to be able to work with you and to just know that I was safe just to come to a
Mm.
place where I could grow in my faith, and that you were a big part of that. So thank you.
Well, thank you for that. And reciprocally, I mean, that was just amazing. Yeah, you did share your story of hurt, and one of the things that probably helped me in my journey was we started a church now 25 years ago, and that church, it didn't live, it didn't make it, right,
Hmm.
but we were there for 4 years, and I learned a lot. And one of the things I learned a lot about that was people are hurt by the church, and there's church damaged people, and that leads to unchurched people and
Yeah.
de-churched people,
Yeah.
all that kind of a thing. But there's a lot of people that have been hurt, and I sit down fairly regularly, even now, with people in my office when people come to the church and they share their story, and they say the same kind of thing. People have just been hurt by the
Yeah.
church, which is a tremendously sad thing.
Yeah.
Um, it it doesn't mean that Jesus hurt somebody. It means
Right.
the body of Jesus hurt people,
Right.
and we're still on this side of we're still on this side of a broken world,
Uh-huh.
and we're broken people, and that still happens because it's hurt people that hurt people,
Right.
and
Right.
so but now you're doing a lot better, and I mean, what a wonderful thing that you've had a lot of healing that's happened from that,
Yeah.
and your family too, I think.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because
Yeah.
we walked away from the church when my kids were at a very formidable age in high school.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when they came back, they could see that it was a whole different experience than what we had gone through before. And then they started growing in their faith. And gosh, you married our son,
Yeah.
our daughter and son-in-law, and baptized
Yeah.
their first son. And yeah, so and they still love, to listen to your sermon still. So
Oh, sweet.
yeah, even though we are in different places, but so on that subject though of church hurt, what would you say? How would you encourage someone who's listening today, who I'm sure
Mm.
there are, others like me who were hurt by the people of the church, again, not by Jesus, but by the people of church. What would you say to encourage
Yeah.
her today?
Yeah. Well, first I say I'm sorry. I mean,
Yeah.
and kind of all of us as Christians kind of bear that responsibility because we're part of the body of Christ together. And sometimes it's important for someone, and maybe not that I'm a better Christian being a pastor. Um, Everybody that knows me knows that, but
I was going to say, that's why you're real, which I absolutely
Yeah.
appreciate. Yeah.
there you go. So, but it's good sometimes for someone in authority, in a position like that, to be able to recognize that and go, "I'm really sorry," and
Mhm.
to kind of go, "This happens," and I've talked to other people, and so I'm sorry. That's always an important thing to say. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And at some point, it's probably helpful to kind of say, when you've been hurt by the church, again, as we just said, you haven't been hurt by the Lord. God hasn't tried to hurt you. It's been people, um, in a misguided way trying to be Jesus in the world that have kind of done that. And it's really a bad thing when it's people in authority, leaders, and those sorts of people. We tend to call that abuse.
Mhm.
And that's what it is. But it's also good to kind of say, don't walk away from the church, um, because it wasn't Jesus. So maybe you just have to find a different community of Jesus people that will will be the right place for you, so that you're not harmed in that. And that's my quick
Yeah.
answer, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. And that church was the place for me for healing. So yeah. And you were a big part of
Yeah.
that. So thank you.
Well,
There's good people
thanks.
at that church. Good people.
Many good.
Mhm.
Yes, wonderful people.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So fast forwarding to now, what is God teaching you in the season that you're currently in? How's he showing up in your life or teaching you?
So, I sort of professionally, I suppose, in my ministry, I think what God's really working on me is what I would call leadership, but it's, influence. It's having influence on others. It's sharing the faith and sharing wisdom with others. And I think God keeps pushing on me to do that more so. And it's helpful because sometimes when I was a full-time pastor, I was, good gracious, was 25 years old,
Hmm.
and I was dumb as a rock. I mean,
We didn't think so at the time, though, when we were 25.
right? I mean, like, and I was book smart, right? I did well in school and all those sorts of things, and I had a lot of energy, right? So I was just kind of like, but I just didn't have experience. I didn't have life experience, and I didn't have experience leading in the church and all those sorts of things. And I know sometimes I'm ready to be a leader and try and impart wisdom, all that kind of a thing when I'm young, like just not really ready for it.
Mhm.
Just we're just not, I
Right.
mean, there are some that might be in their 20s that are able to do that and have a lot of experience and that kind of a thing. But most people and me, I mean, I wasn't able to do that. I'm now I'm in my 50s, and that's kind of a helpful decade of life. And I know you and I have talked about this.
Mhm.
That I was kind of taught this. When you're 20s, you're a smart person, maybe book smart. You've done well in education. You have a tremendous amount of energy. You just don't have a lot of experience.
Yeah.
And in your 30s, you still have a lot of energy, but now you're starting to get some more wisdom, some real life wisdom and experience. And so those things start coming together. And that just keeps going until you get in your 50s. When you're in your 50s, you still generally have good energy. And now you've got quite a lot of experience and wisdom, those sorts of things. I've been doing this for more than 30 years. And so it's kind of a good time to kind of look and see, all right, who's around and who can I be um, having influence on or doing
Mhm.
leadership with, because that's what it is. The whole thing is, we just share that with others so others can share it with others, and
Mhm.
that's how it kind of grows up. There's an end to that sort of analogy or story, which is, when you get in your 60s, you still have pretty good energy, so people can still do things. They're doing pretty well, obviously even more wisdom and experience, those sorts of things. Then when you get in your 70s, but your 60s, you're starting to go down a little bit in your energy, and 70s, by the time you get to be 100, you're pretty tired. So that's
Yes.
that's kind of what it.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So in that, what is God teaching you? And like personally, you said professionally, but what about personally? Anything that he's teaching you now personally?
Um, yeah, I think in part it's that sort of influence leadership thing
Okay.
just on my with my family.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Um, and along with that, just enjoying life, the beauty of life, the beauty of other people. And I think beauty is something that God created and wants us to have, that has created that for us, wants us to be a part of, creating beauty and that real life. And those are the things that kind of touch me in my heart and also with my mind and spirit. And
Mhm.
so and I think that's a great thing to be, when
Yeah.
Jesus shows us those kinds of things.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And speaking of beauty, you have a lot of beauty in your life. A lot of women who are beautiful in
Yeah.
your wife, your or in your life. Your wife,
Yeah.
Joy, and your daughters, and you only have granddaughters right now, right? You don't have any
All
grandsons.
granddaughters. Yeah,
But
I'm
you
I'm a big time girl dad apparently.
yeah. You do have a couple sons-in-law though, right?
Three. Yep, three
Yeah.
sons-in-law.
That's right, 3,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
what since most of the listeners to the podcast are women, what have your daughters and granddaughters taught you about life? And your wife, any of the women in your life, what have they taught you?
Let's
Your
see.
laugh.
Um, well, so I grew up with brothers. I
Uh-huh.
didn't have any sisters when I grew up. Um, and so I didn't know how to treat women. Not that I wasn't taught by my parents how to have manners and those sorts of things, but it's a little different when you're living with someone,
Yeah.
and in married, and I didn't have that until obviously until my wife Joy and I got married, and we were living together, and it's a big just sort of brick wall you run into all of a sudden, because I'm thinking here's my life and everything's great. I was in seminary at the time. I was in graduate school in Chicago, and then Joy and I got married. We'd been engaged, but after a year we got married, and she came and lived uh, in Chicago with me, and I was just sort of like adding her to my life, which now I know that's not really how it works. And I think a lot of people try and do that. They're like, here's my life. I'm just going to add my spouse, to that. And so uh, yeah, Joy did a good job of helping me be softer and gentler. And what a lot of people go through. I was always like, what's right? I'm being right. And it took a long time to realize sometimes you could literally be right and you're not being right, in the relationship. And so it took a while to figure those sorts of things out.
Yeah.
And then we have, kids. We got three kids, and they're awesome, and I'm very, very proud of them.
Yeah.
The thing they really taught me to begin with, because I knew nothing, I didn't know how to be married, right? I just this guy, my wife has to. Now we're bringing these little humans, and again, most of anything that I've done that's pretty well is probably in part to Joel. So she had to teach me how to be a parent and what that kind of means. But what the kids really taught me was patience. And it's that old thing, like if you're praying for patience, God puts you into situations where you have to cultivate and learn being patient. And, I've got these little humans, and I just treated them like they were adult people, and I could just have conversations. I could say to a 3-year-old, don't do that. End of conversation. And you really, I'm like, didn't you listen to me? And again, I just didn't know because I didn't have that sort of experience in life. So they've really kind of taught me patience. And when you're learning patience, you don't do a very good job sometimes, which means, I know I have hurt my kids as they were growing up. And that's one of the saddest things. One of the saddest things for me, and I've shared this with others, is I was too hard on my kids, like trying to discipline them and try and control them into like the kind of people they were going to be and stuff. And I know a lot better now with my grandkids than I did with my own kids. And just thanks to God's grace, our kids are doing really well, and we have a wonderful relationship, and I'm so proud of them and all that kind of thing. But patience, something they had to teach me, wisdom and experience, and then how to really to be a dad, and how to be someone that be that safe place for my wife, and then for my kids and for grandkids. Because that's a pretty important thing, having that safe place in the world now. And so there you go. That's what they taught me, to be a safe place.
Yeah. It's so important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's great.
Yeah.
That's profound, really.
Mm.
Yeah, that is. That's really good. Wouldn't that be a great goal for every person, to be a safe place for our families?
Be the safe place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this month on the podcast, we've been talking about making simple shifts in our life. And it sounds like you continue to do that, over the years. And so simple shifts, we've just been kind of talking to, like, just, you don't have to overhaul your entire life, but making one simple shift can just make a big difference. But do you have any simple shifts that have changed your everyday life? Anything that changes you've made or that have really impacted?
Yeah. So I got several, actually.
I thought you did.
And a lot of them, not even just because, I'm a Christian or a pastor. This is what it means to be human and how we're created. But, a little sort of switch is get some sleep. Sometimes, and actually, I heard this once. Sometimes the most spiritual thing somebody can do is take a nap. And I know that is for some people. And I would just make that kind of a bigger thing, which is go to bed at night, like get a good night of sleep. And for me, the shift was I had to start thinking about going to bed like at 10 o'clock. And when I was back in my 20s and all that whole thing, and, back in school before that and everything, I was up all night sometimes. Even at my first church, I'm in my 20s, I was sometimes up till 1, 2, 3 in the morning, and then I'd like sleep later. And it's just not, it's not a healthy thing.
Right.
the best sleep we can get in a given night is basically between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. And so many of us just kind of miss that by not just going to bed. And so that's a big switch. Now it also probably coincided with some things that happened in my life. So I had a stroke 3 years ago, and that changed a lot in my life. And I had a real struggle with it was just as spring was kind of coming, and that was a graceful thing in my life because I was struggling with light. And so when I'm recovering from this stroke, when the sun went down, I kind of caved in. I kind of went down. And in the morning with there was sun, I could like wake up, I could go stand on the front step and like just take in the sun, and it just kind of literally lifted me up. And so I don't know how I got switching into all of that kind
No,
of
that's
stuff,
good. No, that's
but
good. Yeah. The
that
simple
was kind of the
shifts.
big thing.
Yeah.
Simple shift. So go to sleep so you get up, get some sun, and some exercise. Moving is really important.
Uh-huh.
And there's lots of different ways with that, but that kind of go along with that as secondary things would be like, cut out sugar. I mean,
Mm,
it's a tough thing,
it
and
is.
eating protein, good protein is good,
Yeah.
and lift some weights. Now,
Yeah.
I weigh enough that I'm lifting weights just walking around. Sort of true, sort of just joking, but yeah. So those are all like, and you go, well, these are little switches. Those are huge things.
Yeah, they
I mean,
are.
if people can like switch up and go to bed at night, and if they can get up in the
Yeah.
morning and get sun, all those things are really important. The other thing, and I've done this throughout my especially my ministry, and that is I try and read scripture uh, and spend time with the Lord. And so this year we're doing this as a thing for our church, and so we're reading the New Testament together. Um, um, Pros and cons to this, but I've got the Bible app on my phone, and when I wake up, I can grab that and I can just read that the first thing that I do,
Mhm.
and it helps me to it actually helps me to read on a Kindle or on my phone a little bit. Um, Kind of what happened with me, my stroke 3 years ago, but those are like little switches that are
Yeah.
actually huge kind of switches. Um,
Yeah.
and they're just the basics. They're the basics
Oh,
of life.
yeah. Kind of getting back to what's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh,
Yeah.
there's one more thing too.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
Here's the other one. Investing. It's investing in, the key relationships that we have.
Mm,
Those really important. So for most of us, it's going to be our spouses and our
yeah.
families and close friends. I would also say, for me, in the
Mm,
church family, but investing in those relationships, and if you don't have those relationships, I'll put a plug in for the church. I mean, for a church
mm,
somewhere.
okay.
And I had this conversation. I just had this conversation with a young family at our church last week, and they were talking about how they have all of a sudden they have these relationships with people, and then they were at the grocery store in town. They ran into someone from the church. They knew each other, right? And they could, and that thing that we talk about in the church is it's talked about called the third place. So your first place is your family, and your second place is kind of your place of work. But a lot of people don't have that third place where you're going to have relationships and community. And the church is probably, well, I would say is the best place to, be the third place, so that you have those relationships and that community. And that is so powerful for people in times of joy and in times of difficulty.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That's important. Nurturing those relationships.
it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So to kind of come back to the thought about your stroke, you've been in recovery. I mean, it wasn't a switch overnight and you're fine, right? How
Yeah.
did you stay hopeful even though you were I just remember you were being, you're being honest with us saying this is really scary.
Yeah.
How did you remain hopeful? And how do people remain hopeful today if they're facing something as,
Yeah.
traumatic as a health thing or a relationship or whatever? How do you stay hopeful? How did you do that?
Yeah. Well, if I could tell the story a little bit,
Yeah. Yeah.
I 3 years ago, a little more than that, it was March 9th of 2023, and it was a Thursday, and I had been working on my sermon. We were at a place where, coming out of COVID, we were still going, and we were recording, ahead of the Sunday, and we were able to put things out. We weren't live streaming at that point, so we were recording and putting stuff up. And I'd run up the stairs, and I didn't feel right. And I kind of felt like something was wrong, and I kind of shook it off, like most people are, right? Just run some dirt on there, you'll be okay. And really, I remember thinking, I'll just go take a shower, I'll feel better. And somewhere from between taking a shower, I don't know how I knew what I was doing. I got out of the shower, and I do remember I needed to go do something, but I couldn't remember what I was supposed to do. And I'll have to make this a little faster. We'll be here all day telling the story. The long and short of it is, my daughter was on staff. Our music leader was actually texting me to get over there. They were waiting on me to come and do that. And I couldn't, I had it on my watch, and I was getting this text, and I knew there was something there, but I couldn't understand it. I couldn't read it. And I hear later that I yelled, "I need some help." And Joy, my wife, came in, and she was talking to me, and I didn't understand a thing she said. It just sounded like, blah, 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 blah. I mean, it was just garbled. And I said, "I don't understand what you're saying." And she thought I was joking. She thought I was just messing with her, but I was just not there. Like, I could not understand what she was saying. And what we found out later was the stroke that I had, which is a blood clot that happens in your brain, and it stops the flow of blood there. And where that happened was in the part of the brain that deals with language, receiving and speaking. I could still speak, but when people spoke, the brain didn't decode it, and I couldn't understand. So it's
Wow.
kind of someone's speaking Martian. I mean, I just had no idea. And I kept going, "I don't understand." And my wife, she goes, "Do I need to call 911?" Why? She's kept doing that to me over and over again.
Yeah.
And that didn't really help either. I didn't even what that is.
Yeah.
She called 911. They were there in 2 minutes. It was, and I think they knew right then. My blood pressure was like 500 over 300. Not quite, but I mean, it was like way, way high, 240 over something. And I think they knew that I was having a stroke. And, they were asking Joy where they should take me. And they kind of helped steer us to the downtown Methodist Hospital, which is a stroke center down there. And it was good care down there. But I'm in the emergency room. They've done scans. They're trying to check stuff out. And my family's starting to gather. So my wife Joy's there, and our daughter Mara got there. They called my parents. My parents were all just sort of there. And the doctor comes in. He's talking to them about what's going on. I don't understand what's going on. And I'm just laying there as they're saying these things. And he's telling them that I've had a stroke, and it's affected my language, receiving and speaking. And my daughter Caitlin right away just goes, "Oh, but he's a preacher." And the doctor in the emergency room literally just looked at him and goes,
No.
just shake his head. And I didn't even know at that point. Joy's then standing over there, writing the word stroke on a pad, and just stroke. Somehow it got through. I knew it was a stroke, and just sort of crashing there. And I'm thinking, I'm done. I'm over. I'm not going to be able to be a pastor anymore. I don't know where we're going to live. I mean, all this. I mean, it's just sort of this horrendous sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
They put me in a regular room, and they brought a speech therapist in immediately. And the speech therapist said, "What's this?" And she points up, and I'm like, "I can't say it." She said, "That's ceiling." And then she goes, "What's this?" And she's pointing down, right? I'm like, "I don't know. I can't say it." And she said, "That's floor." And that's where I started. 3 years ago, ceiling, floor. And she'd walk in and she'd say, "What's this?" And I'd say, "It's the ceiling." "What's that?" "It's the floor." My kids, my wife, they would come in to see me in the hospital and they would say, "How you doing?" And then they'd say, "What's that?" "What's that?" And I'd say, "Ceiling, floor." And that's literally where I started. So the speech therapist is sitting next to me. She knows that I'm a pastor. And she looks at me and she goes, let's pray the Lord's Prayer.
Mm.
And I said, with her, I said, "Our Father," and I couldn't do it.
Mm.
And I started crying.
Uh-huh.
And it kind of happens when you have a stroke. You kind of get a much more emotional kind of thing. And I'm just sort of weeping. I couldn't even say the Lord's Prayer. And so then I started at that place spiritually, was learning. And she was teaching me the prayer and I'm praying it with her. And after a couple of days, actually, I was discharged, went home. I was doing speech therapy outpatient at a wonderful place, On With Life in Ankeny. And I had to like pray myself. And I had to like pull up the Lord's Prayer on my phone. And I would be laying in there in my bed. And I would wake up and I would start to pray, "Our Father, who art," and I'd have to like reach over, I'd have to look at the words and I'd pray it. And I can telling you like how many nights that was just trying to learn the Lord's Prayer. And the thing that really taught me that, I think, is you just go back to the basics.
Yeah.
Ceiling, floor, "Our Father who art in heaven," right? You go to those basics and you're just doing that and you're doing it with the people who love you and you love. And then the hope, because now we're bringing it back. Right?
Uh-huh.
The hope is that God does what God does.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's amazing. And now most of the time I can speak pretty well and understand what people are saying. I
Yep.
still have what's called aphasia. And that's from that first stroke. And it actually affects me so that when I'm trying to say something, I won't say the right word. And it's kind of a funny thing for my family now because I say all kinds of crazy stuff. I'll say, "This is a chair" instead of a shirt, and things like that. And they're getting used to it and they think that's funny. And I always worry about the church, like if I'm going to be up there preaching, saying something, not having any idea what people are trying to understand what I'm trying to say. But it's going pretty well,
Yeah.
what God has done. And
Yeah.
and then you could kind of say, "Well, I've been healed." Well, I've been healed. And that's an amazing thing that God has done. I bear some scars from that, like the aphasia that I have. And we have a family, a couple in our church, and she's going to be sharing her story more with the church. It's really powerful. But, she was in a car accident and she wasn't in a car. She was at work and the car came flying through the wall
My
and like
goodness.
ran her over. And she's paralyzed. She's in a wheelchair now.
Oh,
And
wow.
she wants to share her story because of the hope what God has given her and how the Holy Spirit works in her now and has worked in
Amen.
her. And so it's not based on our circumstances. Our hope isn't based on, if it's based on our circumstances, we're in trouble.
For
Right.
sure. For sure.
Because some days it's awesome and some
Yeah.
days it's horrible.
Yeah.
And so our hope is in God, what God is doing, and in the things of healing and beauty and true life. All of those sorts of things are so meaningful and so wonderful. And then of course we have that hope that what happens after we die, those things where like when we're paralyzed and we can't get out of the wheelchair, can now fly and dance,
Yeah.
whatever that means with these new bodies
Amen.
that we get spiritually. But we've been talking about this at my church, but that eternal life or that heaven, that resurrection, it starts here
Yeah.
in this life now where we are. And that's why Jesus teaches us to pray in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So here and now
Yeah.
is that life that that God wants us to have, that Jesus came for us to have, not just so that we wait until we die and then go to heaven. And I know that's kind of a change for some people, but that's why the
Yeah.
hope begins
Right.
here, and we have that. So
Right.
so
Yeah.
now you may be talking to a preacher. So like I'm like, "Oh, how long have I
No,
been
this is
preaching?
good.
How long-"
This is good. No, this is good because that's where our hope is. You're exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That hope that we have. We don't have to wait till we're, like you said, in heaven to have that hope.
Yeah.
You used to say this quote almost every Sunday at the other church. And it just came to me. And I was talking to another friend from that church over the weekend. Something about partnering with God. What was that? Do you remember? It was about,
We were praying. Yeah, I think we were every week in the church. If I'm remembering what you're
yeah,
saying, we were asking to God to allow us to partner with what God is doing as we
yeah,
build God's kingdom.
yeah.
Something
That's
like
what it
that.
was. Yeah, that's what it was. And that just still sticks with me. That's how we also, heaven on earth is we're partnering with Him now. We don't have to just wait
Yeah.
till to heaven.
Right.
Those were profound words back then, and they still resonate with me today. To partner with God. Yeah.
That's awesome. God
Yeah.
is good.
He is. He is.
Yeah.
Well, this has been so good and so encouraging, and I knew it would be. I knew you would be a light to people today. So any not last minute, any last words that you have just to share before
Well,
we close?
it's been a joy for me to be with you for 10 years,
Yeah.
Julie, at the last church. And I don't know how much you shared and how much people know, but then when I went to a new church, the one here in Waukee, we wanted to really take a step up in our communication here. And I told them immediately, I said, well, I know this person named Julie. And, right away they were like, give her a call. Let's, see, and at that point it worked fine.
Yeah.
For you, they weren't full-time positions,
Right.
either way, that way. But you did such a tremendous job in helping this church, which is a wonderful church, the Waukee church, taking a big step up in our communication. And so I've been trying to say how much I appreciate that and what a good thing you've done and how you've grown in that. Even things like, creating images and
Mhm.
pictures for us in all of that and handling that communication stuff. So that's been awesome and been really cool to see you. You've written 2 books now. You didn't put in the second book what the rest of the staff here wanted you to put in. What was that?
I know.
Spiritual Pickles. Spiritual Pickles. We thought one of the devotions can be called Spiritual Pickles. I wasn't sure where you were going to go with that.
I know.
And then you didn't go with it.
I
So
didn't.
the next 365 years, we're still hoping on spiritual pickles. So if we can do that, that would be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah,
But
that
no,
would be.
really, your ministry that you do with that and your conferences when you talk with women and this podcast, it's just amazing. And God's doing good stuff with you. And it's been a joy for me to get to be a part of that with you. And sometimes from a distance and some close up.
Mhm.
And now, yeah, I don't know. I guess you're saying that right now.
Yeah.
You just stepped back from
Yeah.
that communication director position in our church, and so we're having to fill those
Yeah.
shoes. But I'm just thrilled for you for what you're doing, and for you and your grandkids, because I mean that's really such a wonderful, joyful thing.
It
The
was.
beauty and the joy and the wonder with kids, and it is a different thing when you're the grandparent.
For sure.
It's a lot easier for me to have the patience
Yeah,
now
exactly.
because my kids already helped me be a better parent, and
Yeah.
it's so much fun. It's just so much fun with grandkids.
It is. It's a good season of life. That's for sure.
Yeah, and you
Yeah.
got a good family, and so
Yeah,
I
do.
pray for you and your family
Oh,
too.
thank
That's
you.
a cool thing.
Thank you. Well, thank you for all those kind words. I appreciate that. And it has been a joy to work with you. And even though we're separating from work life, now we can just,
Yeah.
Still be involved in
friends.
family's life. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, thanks so
that's a
much for
good thing.
joining me here today. It's been a joy.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Julie. Joy to be with you and your listeners.
All right. Great. Thank you.
Well, friend, I hope this conversation encouraged you as much as it encouraged me. I am so grateful for Pastor John just taking the time out to sit down and have such an honest and real and open, thoughtful conversation about faith, about life, about relationships, and about getting back to what really matters. Gosh, that makes all the difference. And I think one of the biggest reminders from today's episode is that sometimes the most powerful shifts aren't the huge monumental ones. Sometimes they're the simple, everyday choices to rest, to stay grounded in God, to love people well, and just to return to the basics of what truly matters in life. And honestly, I have to say, that's a huge part of why I wrote my new book, Made for More. It is written for the woman who feels exhausted from just striving and surviving her days, and who wants to reconnect with God in the middle of everyday life all over again. If that sounds like you, I would love for you to grab your own copy, and I'll add the link to the show notes so you can find that. And before we sign off today, I just want to share with you, I'm so excited because next week we are beginning a brand new series for the month of June. Can you believe it's going to be June? But here on the podcast, yes, a new series, and it's titled Stories I Don't Always Tell. It's going to feel a little more personal here on the podcast the next month as I share some stories, some of the stories of struggles and moments that have shaped me along the way. And I believe that this series will encourage your own real life in personal ways for you. So make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if today's episode encouraged you, would you just take a quick second to share it with a friend, or share it on social media, or leave a review on the podcast? This truly helps more women find these kind of conversations and encouragement. That would mean so much. So thank you for being here, friend. I am so appreciative of you, and I'm so grateful that you decided to spend part of your day with us here today. And I'll look forward to seeing you back here next week. Until then, God bless you. Thank you so much for joining me here today. You can find more at julielefebure.com. And until next time, stay encouraged.